While I've seen some analysts rating this an A-graded deal for the Trailblazers, let me explain why Portland actually lost the Dame and Jrue trades badly. Dame is a better player than both Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. Yes, the market has changed, but keep in mind they could have just traded Dame then, considering they were still losing, and Dame trade rumors have been going on for longer than discussions of Mitchell or Gobert being traded at the time. Also, the asking price for Dame should have at least been similar to KD's. But let's go over why Dame and Jrue trades in specific is a massive loss for the Portland Trailblazers. Portland reportedly ghosted the Miami Heat when they had asked what in specific they'd like to get from them in a package and constantly ignored their offers. By refusing to trade Dame to his original preferred destination Miami, they inadvertently avoided the best assets they could have gotten back in a Dame trade. Sure, Portland could be salty Dame's preferred destination was Miami, and he initially refused to be traded anywhere else, hurting his trade value. They may be upset at Lillard's agent, who sparked media reports that no other team are even in the discussion, and out of spite, Portland refused to trade Lillard, and ironically even Jrue right after the Miami, even if they could have put together the better package.
Essentially, this was a warning given to players, other agents around the league, that you can't just publicly come out and say you want to get traded to a specific team or refuse to potentially play for other teams. People with knowledge of the situation, even people in Portland, they understand there is no shift in Lillard's mindset, his ultimate goal of playing in Miami. And no question, this is something we all have to monitor, especially after the memo given on Friday to NBA teams. But at this point, it's on Portland to find a deal with Lillard. This is a guy that's played 11 seasons there, arguably the best player in franchise history. He's been loyal there for years. And Joe Cronin, the GM there, he came out publicly and said he will work to find a deal. And I'm told the Heat have been preparing a trade package around 3 to 4 first-round draft picks, potential draft swaps, as well as second-round picks, a young player potentially. We see right there what a framework of a deal could look like if Portland decides to go down this path in Miami. Will that be good enough? Can they get better? Is there a team out there that's willing to take on Damian Lillard without really knowing whether he wants to play for them?
To put things into perspective, Giannis is 28 years old, Jason Tatum is only 25 years old, but Jimmy Butler is 34 years old, older than both Giannis and especially Tatum. Yet the Trailblazers chose to get draft picks from projecting them to be worse in the future over Butler, who's older and will certainly fall off much sooner. In fact, Butler is 9 years older than Tatum. If Portland's betting on Giannis or Tatum leaving, then they're really projecting poorly. Dame's leaving because he has never made the NBA Finals and never had a prime all-star level team around him throughout his career. They just gave Giannis that now. On top of that, Giannis already won a championship with the Bucks in 2021, and Tatum made the NBA Finals in 2022, and even the Celtics have only gotten better since, thanks in part to Portland too. In fact, it was Portland trading Dame to the Bucks and Jrue to the Celtics that will keep Giannis and Tatum happily on their respective teams even longer. The grass really isn't greener for either of them outside of the Bucks and Celtics. They are also both supermax stars with extremely talented rosters and star-filled starting lineups around them. Remember, it was Portland who shifted the balance this much in their favor. If they're really betting on their failure and both leaving, and for them to be especially bad in the future, then they should look in the mirror exactly why that won't happen. The Bucks and Celtics are the title favorites now and will likely be for years to come. Giannis and Tatum can trust their organizations long term and will continue to stay throughout their careers and their primes, only making the picks they owe Portland worth much less than what Portland thinks. On the other hand, Miami will eventually need to rebuild after Butler, and that is much sooner rather than later. Does Portland really expect their rebuild to start 5 to 7 years from now while building a mediocre team for the next 5 to 7 years? What's the end goal here? Even if their draft picks come in that late and from two of the best teams in the whole league that are going to end up being projected to be low picks. While freeing Scoot is the saving grace in all this, in 5 to 7 years he will likely be an elite star guard, and similar to Dame, will then be wasting away his prime when their draft picks finally become actual players. By the way, if they really believe in former #1 pick DeAndre Ayton, well, he's already 25 years old, and by the time their only first-round pick converts into a player in 2029, not including their 2 pick swaps, Ayton will then already be 31 years old. They also just gave away 2 of their most recent first-round pick players, Nazir Little and Keon Johnson, to the Suns. Also, the Bucks and Celtics just last season had the best overall regular season records. They have consistently been a top-seeded team for the last few seasons and perennial contenders. players, usually always finishing with higher seeds than the Heat as well. If there was any contender to trade, it should have been the Miami Heat. Yes, the Miami Heat recently went to 2 NBA Finals recently and 3 Eastern Conference Finals, but how far they go in the playoffs doesn't matter. It's what seed they finished the season that impacts how high they'll be drafting. In 2020, when they went to the NBA Finals, they were just a 5 seed in the East, and in 2023, when they made the NBA Finals again, they were a 7 seed last year. It's misleading to judge that the Heat would just be good and the draft picks won't be worth much, when in reality they traded to teams that are mathematically likely to be worse and so will likely end up with less valuable picks. Trade rumors were centered around Tyler Hero, who is younger and already better than their current haul. Most importantly, Tyler Hero is a proven player who's only 23 years old and coming off a really productive future all-star level season with 20.1 points per game, 5.4 rebounds per game, 4.2 assists per game on 44, 38, 93 shooting splits. His only real criticism is his poor defense, but I'm sure Portland is used to that, considering their long-tenured backcourt duo of Damian and CJ. Anthony Simons isn't a good defender too. Also, the Heat usually don't get high seeds in the Butler era because they only care about playoff success over regular season success, which is actually perfect for drafting success. They're able to win just enough to make the playoffs and regularly make noise there, while their lack of effort and care for the regular season betters their draft odds to get better picks. Sure, they make it far in the playoffs, but all Portland should care about is the projected number of their picks, and with the Heat likely getting a 5 to 8 seed or even below in the coming years, you can expect those draft picks to be much more higher than an almost guaranteed top 2 seeded draft picks from the Bucks and Celtics. Now let's break down the Jrue trade where the Blazers sent him to the Celtics. The Celtics happily gave away their 2 most injured players, a single unprotected first round pick to the Trail Blazers and 1 first round pick from the Warriors. Again, the unprotected first round pick is from the Celtics in 2029 where Tatum will be 31 years old and still in his prime, so that first pick is almost certainly not going to be a high pick. Let's not forget the 2024 first round pick from the Warriors that was also included. With the Warriors still trying to maximize their championship window and even getting Chris Paul, you can expect Curry to continue to play at an all-time level and try to win another title, so that first round pick's also likely going to be worth very little too. One thing to consider in all this is just because the list looks big doesn't mean they're actually getting much of material value. They only got a few first round draft picks, specifically only 3 in all this, and technically only 1 in the actual Dame trade, a 2029 first round pick from Milwaukee, which as mentioned earlier will be projected to be a low pick. The other first round pick is the Warriors 2024 first round pick via the Celtics, which will also be worth very little considering they're still contending for titles and added Chris Paul. Then also in 2029 they get 1 first round pick from the Celtics, would still have a prime Jason Tatum, and so almost certainly will still be a very low pick. Now let's talk about those filler pick swaps that makes the package and trade seem better than it really is. So far in NBA history, pick swaps have provided very little, and most teams with these pick swaps never even exercised the option simply because they already had the worst record of those years, and so their own pick is already worth more than the swap. By this logic, the 2 first round pick swaps with the Bucks in 2028 and 2030 will likely be ignored as Portland will still be projected to be worse than them, and so Portland will just end up keeping their own draft picks instead of swapping. In fact, the only time in NBA history the pick swaps materialized extremely well was in the 2017 NBA draft where the Boston Celtics exercised their swap rights with the Brooklyn Nets and then drafting, ironically, Jason Tatum 4 years after the Celtics traded Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett to them. It is the only instance where the value acquired was equivalent to a lottery pick, but keep in mind, you could have projected this as Kevin Garnett was 37 years old and already coming out of his prime when he just entered the Nets, and Paul Pierce was 36 years old. To emphasize how practically worthless these pick swaps are, there were several teams with pick swaps in the latest 2023 NBA draft from past trades, but no team exercised the option. Generally, the teams that traded their star player and received the option to swap picks wound up worse than the teams who acquired the talent, and so they're almost always better off just keeping their own pick. As for this case, their pick swaps are likely going to not be exercised, as Portland will still be a worse team than prime Tatum on the Celtics and the late prime Giannis on the Bucks. This is a massive win for the Celtics, who just traded away a future pick that'll likely never materialize into anything worthwhile, as Tatum is still in his prime and the Warriors pick when they're still in their prime too. They essentially replaced Marcus Smart with Jrue Holiday and Robert Williams with Porzingis, 2 players who have been all-stars before. They managed to dump the salaries of their 2 most injured players and somehow got an all-star back. Similar to Ayton, Robert Williams is also already 25 years old and plays center. Already, Ayton has had confidence issues with the Suns, Monty and even Chris Paul being hard on him, and Ayton ultimately showing signs of giving up, but this fresh start was short-lived with the arrival of Robert Williams. Ayton looked so excited and spoke highly of the trust Portland has in him to trade for him as part of their rebuild already, but they brought in another center, showing a lack of faith or dependence on the development of Ayton. Portland now has a clogged center position like the trust to process 76ers with Embiid, Nerlens Noel, and Jahlil Okafor. They're lucky one ended up panning out with Embiid being an MVP player, but who knows if Ayton or Robert Williams will ever reach those highs. Also keep in mind, in the end of the day, Portland failed to gain even one young star or a piece you're certain to be able to rebuild around. No player they received is near the value of Dame or Jrue. If they really had faith that Ayton would be the main asset in these trades to rebuild around, they wouldn't have gotten Robert Williams right after. Their sense of direction and who to build around is still very much in question. Sure, they have solid young players like rookie Scoot, Anthony Simons, and Shaedon Sharpe, but they had them before these trades. From the trade, they gained no clear star piece or a young player who they even really believe would develop into a star, like the Nets when they acquired Ben Simmons and Mikal Bridges, or the Pacers with Tyrese Halliburton. As for Brogdon, why pick a more injured and older 6th Man of the Year winner when Tyler Hero was available and was considered a fringe all-star over the last 2 years, even being young enough to fit their rebuild timeline? Brogdon recently this summer failed medicals, leading to trade rejections like with the Clippers, and somehow that was enough for all-star and all-defense first-team Jrue Holiday though. Brogdon's already 30 years old and likely won't want to stay as he worries about getting his next contract, so being benched behind far younger players isn't something Brogdon will happily accept. On the other hand, Tyler Hero also won the 6th Man of the Year the season before Brogdon and has a higher ceiling. All things considered, maybe they trade Brogdon again, but considering trades were already failed earlier just a month ago due to his questionable injury worries, it'll be hard to find a team willing to take on Brogdon for additional draft picks. In the end of the day, Portland technically got one thing out of all this, and that's to hurt the Miami Heat, which they succeeded in by making them miss out on Dame and then Jrue, and by giving Giannis definitely will go to the Heat too. So they really made the Heat miss out on all these stars, all while losing Gabe Vincent and Max Strus. So they certainly succeeded in revenge against the Heat for enticing Dame to demand out. But in terms of their overall rebuild and the haul they received, they strategically really could have done better. And we know one thing for certain is trading with the Heat would have ironically made the most sense with the best compensation. Be sure to like and subscribe. Also check out one of my other videos.